Let not your heart be troubled. This is Voyager, please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
I'm Peter.
And I've got good news for you, Peter.
I like good news. I want to hear this good news.
Well, apparently our shilling and selling out has had a response. Kidding aside, my thanks to everyone that signed up for our Patreon over the last couple weeks. We had modest expectations, and those expectations were actually exceeded. We love that people appreciate your show so much that they're willing to toss in a couple bucks for it, and I just wanted to say thank you. And if you are up to contributing, it's at www.patreon.com/VegerPlease. And if that is not on your priority list, trust me, I understand. This is a podcast about a 23-year-old television show. That's fine. I
will thank also the people who have donated. And I think everybody listening should thank the people who donated because of brave souls like this, nobody has to hear about Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster.com, or fucking mattress commercials. Not that was on the table anyways, but
yeah, I mean we're the smallest of the small fry. But
I was saying, no, of course they didn't approach us. I was just saying I'm not interested in giving commercial space to any of those guys either.
Yeah. We keep it pure around here. And
only organically grown shout outs on this episode. You should beep out any of the mentions, the specific brand mentions I did, just so we can.
You want to give them the
literally
dozens.
Dozens of
dozens.
Years.
Oh my. It's just all of that valuable advertising space. But speaking of, I was going to transition there into something but suddenly speaking of valuable advertising space doesn't feel like the pivot point.
Speaking of valuable advertising space, how about those prefab caves? Whether it's an ice planet like Hoth, spelunking cave where Neelix is going to fall and break a rib, or one of the dozens of dinosaurs encounters that you will have along the Voyager timeline, our prefab planet hell caves are second to none. Season 3.
Do you want to make it look like it's outdoors, but it's not?
Do you want to have Chakotay and his phaser dick walking around shortly after Seska has scampered away to go deal with the Kazon? All right, man. Season 3, episode 23, Distant Origin. And speaking of that cave, that's my first scene. I froze frame, and the cave. I know that rocky arch entrance from anywhere. It's been a while since we've seen the cave, and finally we've come home.
My ancestral memory of this episode betrayed me because I remembered hating it. I didn't hate it. I did not hate this episode. And it actually has some pretty strong continuity notes because where we're starting is actually the rando planet that Voyager got stranded on at the beginning of the season.
Wasn't really a rando planet. Well, to your first point, I came onto the podcast arena tonight ready to fight you because I very much remembered what you said, that this was going to be a piece of garbage episode. And I too found myself enjoying it. So I'm glad to see we're on the same page as far as that goes.
You can put your metaphorical knife down. That's fine. You're good.
I got the real one. I got my switch.
That sweet juggalo tech. I understand.
No, I've got my Batleth letter opener ready to go. I don't think it was really a random cave. I think the Kazon specifically picked this planet because they knew it was a motherfucker planet full of dinosaurs and cave people and lava.
And that, in fact, the volcano is still going when we get our first shot of the planet from Basics Part 2. And did you put together who
absolutely
dug up?
Absolutely. Come on.
Good.
That gold division jumpsuit with that Maquis provisional pin.
Mm-hmm.
The proximity to the entrance where a certain space cat left a certain person to stand on an X drawn in blood.
Yep. Yeah, these two aliens that we see who have got some pretty, shall we say, radical makeup on. Reminiscent of another 90s television show that I'm sure you're going to reference here shortly. They dig up the bones and horrifically shattered skull, by the way, so now we know how Hogan died, and it was not well, of one crewman Hogan. This is I guess you'd call it his last appearance on the show. Heyo. He did it. But it's the remainders of his uniform and literally his leftover bones. How would you describe the look of these aliens, Peter?
Okay, so I'm watching, and I'm going into this, again, prepared for a real turd episode based on the biased predictions that you had made. So while these guys are rooting around in the dark cave, and I don't know why, but the presence of a flashlight really gave me a good laugh. And it's any of these aliens. Anytime aliens have something that is very clearly identifiable as current modern day Earth technology, it's like, especially these guys, all the crazy technology you're going to see that they have, and they're still bumbling around with fucking mag lights. But all you can see is a shadowy background or silhouettes of these guys. I was not prepared for them to actually be dinosaur people.
Yes!
So I froze on that, and I alt-tabbed out of Netflix and started doing searches for, I think it was ABC's, was it a Jim Henson production? Dinosaurs?
You know what? I don't know if it was a Jim Henson production, but it is a seminal television program, nevertheless. A fixture of 90s TV were these kind of quirky, very family-oriented shows that showed up specifically on ABC. That was the network that always had them. They had all the TGIF shows. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
And so Dinosaurs was kind of in that realm in that it was this, family unit. We talked about Not the Baby before.
That was last time. Well, not the last time, but one of the many times we've been in these caves, this Planet Hell set piece, specifically with other dinosaur people. And the last time was, Parturitions. Was that Parturition?
I believe it was.
That was the Neelix and Tom have a food fight with spaghetti and then end up getting along by the end. And
yeah, it's where we realized that Jonathan Frakes should assume his godhood for making that episode work.
That was where he performed a miracle.
It is. Walked on water.
So I start checking out this, I grabbed the picture of the dinosaur family and I circled the mom, who also the mother from Arrested Development, and Mallory Archer. I can't remember her name off the top of my head because I'm a piece of shit, even though I love
Mallory
her.
Archer. It's fine.
And I was like, ho, 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 these guys look like dinosaurs. And lo and behold, we'll find out that they are, in fact, dinosaurs. But while I'm pulling up pictures of ABC's dinosaurs, it ends up with, hey, where are they now? And I start looking around and seeing who some of these characters are. And Joe, there's some shocking revelations I came across in there. Not the least of which is the fact that Tim Curry was heavily involved as the devil.
Of course.
But you ready for this?
Okay.
You fucking ready for this, dude? Move over, Better Call Saul, because we've got Susie Plaxton, who we will most recently remember as Lady Q.
Yep.
And previous to that, Worf's baby mama.
Correct.
Speaking of Worf, you got Michael Dorn and none other than Robert fucking Picardo as former cast on ABC's Dinosaurs.
What?
Yeah, man.
Good God. There is definitely some kind of... what are the chances of that? These casting agents just love to cast their homies, I guess. It's got to be it.
Yeah.
There's no other explanation for it. What kind of dinosaur does Robert Picardo play? Jesus Christ.
You know what? We'll leave that for a trauma support group conversation coming up in the next week. Maybe we'll find some pictures, because all the other dinosaurs kind of look characteristically like the actors portraying him. So I don't know. Maybe he looks like the Johnny Cab from Total Recall. He's some weird Johnny Cab alien. Who knows?
Maybe he's a werewolf dinosaur. He knows he's got those teeth.
Use the same teeth.
Yeah.
We don't have any dinosaur teeth. Well, it's funny you say that because I have werewolf teeth that are 5 years old. But speaking of mind-boggling, again, I said it last episode when we started talking about this capsule initially. how shitty that Voyager just leaves crew members' remains behind on planets. And we know that religion is not a big part of the Federation or Starfleet, but certainly there are ceremonies and traditions that are observed when crew members die. You know, they usually get the photon torpedo launch out into space. But man,
I wonder if Chakotay did a half-ass memorial service for him after they got the ship back or something. You know, talked about how Hogan was really just this maniac who liked to just stab people in bars and stuff, but you know, that's how they became friends. I mean, that seems to be...
Unlike Jonas, who was a traitor and died a traitor's death, Hogan was a solid dude. Hogan got quite a bit of screen time over season 2. I want to say, you know, he was part of a couple efforts that saved the ship on a few episodes.
It's true, including he was the one responsible for helping Snarf find the detective episode where he found out who the traitor is.
Yeah, you know, Hogan wasn't a scrub or an unlikable punk. He was a solid part of that crew. And I'll give him a little bit of a pass on him. There was also Ensign Bowlcut, who fell into the space worm's mouth, but
he deserved to die. That haircut alone was a sin against God.
So where's the rule? What's the rule of thumb for Starfleet? Like, if you get shot and fall over, we'll come back down to the surface and pick you up and give you a proper burial. But if you died and potentially have gone through a giant creature's digestive system, we will leave your poopy remains alone. Like,
nobody else wanted to stand on the spot to find out.
But you know what? When they pull up his shredded up uniform, I don't see any fecal matter embedded in that. So I don't know. It just seems very cold to me. I get that Voyager wanted to get the fuck out of Dodge once they got the ship back. But leaving the dead behind seemed real shitty, and it wouldn't do very much for morale. But then again, we're talking about Janeway and Chakotay, who, if you'll recall basics, willingly went into a trap, and Janeway very pridefully announced that, you know, of course everybody on the ship implicitly supports you in your quest to go find out if this crazy ex-bitch GF you have, if her maybe baby is actually yours. Everybody's behind this 100%, and then we lose the ship, and
that seems like information worth risking our lives for, sure.
At least 2 crew members die horrific deaths. And not even so much of a, hey crew, I appreciate you having my back. I'm really sorry. Remember, there was no remorse out of Chakotay or Janeway at the end of that entire fucking debacle. In fact, Janeway got real pissy and shitty with people once they got down on the planet's surface.
And in the end, wasn't even his fucking kid.
No.
He went through all that baby mama drama, and it turns out it just belonged to Cullen anyway. And they just went off to Narnia, wherever you go after you're done on Voyager.
Yeah.
Anyway, rest in peace, Hogan. You died a shit death because your captain and your first officer are idiots. And Seska run hot game on them so hard you wound up getting eaten by a space monster and your head caved in after Neelix led you to your death.
Mm-hmm.
But his bones are being collected by these 2 dinosaur-looking dudes who are, as you noted, dinosaur people. That is what they are. And they are studying Hogan's body because the key dinosaur person scientist is in belief of a theory that his people actually originated on a far-off planet. And in fact, as we get kind of this background through the dialogue these 2 are having, he has confirmed that hypothesis by looking at Hogan's DNA and seeing the similarities within his species' DNA and humans. Now, at this point, Stevie looks over and says, is this going to be an episode about evolution? Is this going to be an episode about, crazy religion people and evolution? And I had to say to her, yes, it is. And I think that's my major complaint is that while I liked the sci-fi framing of the story, this is so dated to the 90s. Because I know...
Is it?
I see your point, because it just so happens, internet, in case you don't know it, but I, in particular, living in Cincinnati, Ohio, live mere minutes away from a place called the Creation Museum in the Commonwealth of Kentucky that attempts to institutionalize the idea of creation over evolution. So that debate is not dead in this particular part of the country, but I feel like everyone else has given that up.
I think there is a bunch of different situations that you can liken this episode to, where it's people using science and reason, being shunned by other groups who just want to believe or show blind faith, whether it's a religious argument, a flat earth argument, anti-vax. I mean, it's a story that I think can be told over and over again with very pertinent modern day examples. So
I'm not saying you're wrong, and I do want to stay here a little bit on this topic because it is not the overwhelming thrust of the episode, and so I think it's worth digesting how the setup works and what about it works and what doesn't. The concept of an alien race not wanting to depart from its long-held beliefs in the face of evidence is itself, I think, a good setup. I just think that it is dated in that it's like specifically like origin of the species oriented. I get why they did it, particularly at the time. It was a more pertinent topic in the news, I think. And so, sure. And it's certainly not distant enough or niche enough that you can't pick up on it right away watching it now. I feel like the episode falls apart narratively a little bit in that this is missing like 20 minutes of giving more background to the dinosaur people and explaining some shit that just never gets explained on camera. And we'll get to that.
Okay, well, I look forward to getting to that. We get treated to a couple things here early on. One is some new ship designs. And again, this is me giving credit where it's due. I want to say the last time we saw alien ships was Favorite Son, when Harry, Kim, and the crew encounter what is old Romulan scout ships.
That is correct. The old Romulan scout ship was whooping on him, and then there was a newer design that helped him out when he was refusing to have sex with hot alien babes.
They've been very stingy with giving us new ships on Voyager, so I appreciate that the dino ships are new and that look visually different than anything we've seen before. The dinosaur makeup is all in all not bad for a one-and-done throwaway costume. You get a lot of close-ups as the episode will progress, and these dinosaurs are on screen a lot and in pretty good numbers. I want to say in some of the courtroom scenes later on, we're pushing upwards of 8 fully costumed dinosaur peoples on screen at the same time. So that was probably a significant, special effects costume budget. And I wouldn't say any of them look anything less than acceptable for modern science fiction, let alone Star Trek, which has traditionally been, dudes in trash bags jiggling around. But the dinosaur people clothing's terrible. It's like camouflage nylon robes from Walmart. That ties back into the flashlight thing I had. Aliens can only get so alien on a network like sci-fi television show.
They've got certain restraint in what they can show. I mean, they've only got so much money.
Sure. So everything's going to look like a set piece that looks like any old regular human set piece, yet here are these wildly different aliens that have basically all the same shit we have.
Well, in this case, these aliens, the dino people, they go out of their way very quickly to demonstrate their vast technological superiority. And I think there's some interesting continuity notes here. The story starts to kick off when the head dino scientist, a guy by the name of Gengen, I believe, reports to his higher-ups like, hey, I found this missing link that shows that we're from this planet. And they talk about a scale of millions of years that this race has been around. Millions, which is, I think, significant from the beginning, because this is not a time scale that you generally see invoked in anything in Star Trek. Generally, it's thousands, because that's a more relatable to human beings kind of scale. Like human civilization itself, recorded history, we're talking about even at the point of in the 26th century, you're talking about 5,000 to 7,000 years max, right? These guys have been around for millions. But this challenges their order, and so he gets a frosty reception and eventually finds out that he's going to get arrested for essentially questioning the doctrine of the origin of the dino people, which is that they're basically just the first race and they're just the king shits of the universe.
Yeah, he's saying dinosaur Jesus isn't real.
Or that, like, they came from somewhere and evolved from something else.
Which is flimsy. It's the flimsiest part of this whole...
Yeah, and that's the part of the setup that sucks, is that these guys obviously have super technology. We're going to find out they have transwarp. They have personal cloaking devices. They have all the cool shit.
Blowguns.
And they obviously... they can transport whole ships into their ship. I mean, it's
the
just
scale of their technology. We'll see it later on, but their city ship, I think, is like one of the biggest ships that you ever see in the Star. It might have actually been bigger than a cube.
I think it was, considering the perspective you get on the inside of it. And the problem, I think, that ends up coming from this is that they never give a credible explanation for why such a technologically advanced species would reject information like this. Why would a species that has millions of years of evolution and ability to understand its environment on a level that no other species can compete, be like, nah, we're just not going to accept that because reasons. Like, there was never anything give other than, but that's the way it's ever been. And that sucks, because the rest of this episode's premise is cool, and they underserved the most important part of it, because they just wanted to do the story of it being, oh, hey, look at this guy believes in evolution and everyone thinks that he's wrong. That sucks.
Yeah. Had they actually just come out and made some sort of a religious angle to it, it would have hand waved that concern away. If there would have been like,
bingo.
If, what is the there's no consequence.
Yeah.
Nothing bad will happen that is clearly demonstrated. It's just because.
And maybe they didn't do religion because it would have been too on the nose.
Yeah.
Like, if they made the reason religion that they were rejecting evolution, everyone would have been like, but as long as they don't actually invoke a religious argument specifically, they kind of duck the controversy just enough that no one gives a shit. Maybe that's the reason why they didn't do it. But if that's the reason why you can't give that explanation, then give us another one. But whatever. Instead, we get Chief Dino Scientist narrating a explanation of their attempts to try and find Voyager in the wake of this reception that they receive. And we actually get a really cool piece of continuity. They find the space station next to the Necrit Expanse where Snarf was doing his dirty drug deals.
We learned a couple things over the next few scenes. One, at this point in Voyager's lifespan, the events of Basic Part 2, which is where Voyager is the crew stranded on Volcano Planet, and Hogan dies, is at this point now more than 1 year in the past. We also learned that these dinosaur people are excellent at jumping to conclusions. They pretty much nail everything about humanity within the first few bits of conjecture between the lead scientist and his sidekick. And yeah, like you said, we end up getting back to some of the milestone moments of Voyager over season 2, including the Necrotic Expanse space station, where they go in and they start talking with the locals. And something we've talked about before is the sheer amount of technology and doodads that Voyager leaves in its wake. These guys are able to barter and end up with old comm badges, functional tricorders, and even a canister of Voyager warp plasma, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the whole fucking point of that episode was the bad guy drug dealer cartel that had been running a hot game on the Necrotic Expanse space station. They wanted Neelix to steal the warp plasma, and he got a decoy. It wasn't really the warp plasma. He vented it, the whole thing emptied, and then that guy shot his phaser and burned his face off.
You are exactly fucking correct, and that also bothered me. That they remembered the warp plasma was part of that, but that it wasn't actually Voyager's warp plasma.
I'm surprised
that was the whole point, because he couldn't bring himself to fucking steal it. Like, come on.
I'm surprised that they didn't have like a Walmart full of old broken shuttle parts too, from the amount of chassis they've left around. But like I said, we talked about
great. It like piece one together from all the fucking shattered remains they found scattered across the sector. Yeah.
So, and again, I really like this episode, but there's a lot of holes and they're easy to punch, and I'm going to start touching on them now. That the dinosaurs would even end up in the Delta Quadrant is the first big question. And a large problem that I have with this story that they're playing with is you've now introduced a new mega race, right? You think about the big races in Star Trek, the big deals. It's the Federation humans, Romulans, Klingons, the Q, the Borg, and now there's like this God King lizard people, dinosaur people thing that we've never heard about before. We're probably never going to hear about again. And they've just kind of introduced them in this vacuum. And we learn a little bit, like they don't really like mammalian species and they kind of stay off and do their own thing. But all like the warm-blooded humanoids, if these guys are out there looking for a weird missing link and they think that it's humanity, there are so many species that we have encountered in the Delta Quadrant that are basically just humans, right? The Skevians, the space truckers, like those super low, the space truckers at least had like a little vagina makeup thing on the bridge of their nose. But there have been so many, the space truckers specifically, where there's just no makeup effort at all. It's just a human for all intents and purposes. Have all of these guys already been examined by these dinosaur archaeologists? Like, what would make them think that Voyager, of all the bipedal mammals in the Delta Quadrant, are that thing they're looking for?
Yeah, this, as I noted earlier, this episode suffers from about 20 minutes of content it didn't have. Explanations of how it is that Dino Doctor came to the conclusion that humanity was the thing. There's a lot of missing content between him and Chakotay. Holy shit. It feels like there was like 3 scenes that they were supposed to have together and just didn't. They set up a really cool premise and pay off none of it. They make an interesting, like the way they tell the story primarily from the perspective of the dino people. I think was a cool idea too.
You don't even see a Voyager crew member other than Hogan's remains for the first 15 minutes of this episode. This is a 45-minute episode, and you cut like the intro credits out. 15 minutes, that's like almost half the episode with no Starfleet at all. So that was a real risky play on there, and you never have guest stars carrying an episode that deep. I've never seen that in any Star Trek episode ever.
This is very unique in a lot of ways, and going back to something you previously said about setting these guys up as like basically god tier alien technology potential antagonists.
Mm-hmm.
I get why they did that given how they were setting them up as having had millions of years to evolve, but it's just something that when you put it out there like this in a property like Star Trek, when people like you and me who are huge fans feel like it's pretty incongruous in that respect.
Yeah.
Because you don't see them again. You don't really feel their presence in the galaxy again. And they don't really offer too much of an explanation as to why, other than we don't like warm-blooded creatures.
Yeah. So is there like a whole different race? Like, is there a race divide in space?
And when they're next door neighbors to the Borg too, like
that's its own thing I'm going to get into. And like I want to touch on
really seem like they should be able to compete with, if not run hot game on the Borg, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not crazy to think that.
No. Yeah. So let's have the conversation right now. The Borg, are coming. And Voyager could have chosen to ignore the Borg and not told a Borg story. Instead, they embraced the Borg fully. And they had to know in the writer's room that this is where they're going. Every episode that they have put out since the introduction of the Borg and whatever that space blood fever. That's the first time we say, okay, the Borg are here, and this is going to be something we're dealing with. Everything should have been done with the expectation that how does it touch the Borg? You're in the Borg's backyard now. So if you've got Tyrannosaurus, Godzilla powerhouses, why haven't they just cleaned the Borg up? How are they not interacting? You've created the strongest, biggest, oldest race in anything Star Trek related we've seen, with the exception of maybe the Q. Why are these guys not a thing? Why has nobody ever heard of the Tyrannosaurus people? Why are the Tyrannosaurus people seem to be completely ignorant of everything else going on in the Delta Quadrant? Like,
if they'd offered an explanation that they've become decadent or somehow
give them a Dyson sphere. Say they live in a Dyson sphere. They don't like outsiders. They've cloaked the entire planet, and they are fiercely xenophobic and want to just be left the fuck alone.
Boom,
sure,
done. That's more than enough.
They don't care about what the Borg's doing next door. They don't care about
if the Borg
space
come
truck.
by, they'll just wipe them out. They're like that cool.
Yeah,
they are so far beyond everyone's power that they've looked inward and otherwise don't give a shit.
And a big part
that would have been an explanation too.
And the big part of this is that they all seem so dumbfounded, and like tracking down Voyager is this massive feat. Voyager, let's go to the next door joke we tell. Everybody knows who Voyager is, from the Skevians to what was the last planet they encountered where they're like, well, we don't want anything to do with you. Oh, you know what? It turns you're all right. If every fucking scrub knows what's up with Voyager and where Voyager is going and to stay away from Voyager or whatever, why is it the most advanced species we've ever seen completely in the dark on where they are and how to track them down? And they have to do like this real gumshoe hit in the streets dealing with the hillbillies in the Necrotic Expanse colony. So yeah, like the dinosaur people are cool, but I don't think they were willing to put the time in to really fit them into Star Trek the right way. They feel more like shitty DLC content.
Yeah, they're like the tacked on thing that you go do after you've beaten the main game.
Or some sort of like fan fiction that someone's like, wouldn't it be cool if there were dinosaur people? Like, yeah, they fit just enough that you're like, the person who wrote this knows about Star Trek, but they don't fit in well enough that's like, this is something that is first party content.
Dino, Doc, and his assistant eventually do catch up with Voyager. They, again, as we noted, they have both transwarp and interphasic cloaks, so they're able to basically roll up on them and transport onto the vessel while remaining unseen. And they do like some observations. They watch Tom and B'Elanna flirt with each other.
During the flirting, they smugly say, oh, look, the female is incapable of vasodilation. That's why she has to lay it on so thick heavily. Humans can totally vasodilate. Vasodilate is when blood vessels open up. And when you're flirting and you're blushing, that's exactly what vasodilation is. So some real shitty science homework there, Branagh. I paid attention in anatomy, I'll have you know.
You got me on that one, brother. Like, I didn't know that. That's fine.
Well, now you know.
Brad Braggott's got nothing on you, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I think on my science classes I took in undergrad were chemistry. That was what I did to settle that requirement, and I remember approximately none of it.
Camera work, man. Real quick, I want to talk about the camera work, too. They take some real crazy shots, not only like dialogue, conversation, close-ups on faces, but camera positioning around Voyager. They give us our first top-down shot of what the Voyager bridge looks like. It is fucking huge. I never really realized how big the Voyager bridge set piece is. The area between the captain chair and Tom is like a half a basketball court, it feels like. They got a lot of wasted space on that scene piece.
I liked some of the sort of doing the Dutch angle thing that they try later, and I think it overall works.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely like they did some interesting, different things to try and make it look different. I like it.
I liked it too. And I don't know if they were trying to like play weird camera angles to distort some of the makeup, but I think the awkward camera angles, the wide fisheye angles, are part of why this dinosaur costume looks so good on the close-up shots that it had.
So they eventually get found out by the Voyager crew that they're snooping on them because they underestimate their technology, and get cornered in the mess hall, which is, of course, where we get our one line from Neelix or whatever that he seems to be stuck with lately.
I'll note they changed his blue dick patch on his apron. Did you notice that?
Honestly, he was in the episode so little, I wasn't looking for the dick patch.
That's a shame. I would have expected better from you. Yeah, so they're doing this fun thing because these guys have little personal cloaks. And I want to point out this this interphasic cloaking that they're using. The last time we heard of interphasic cloaking was back in the Eric Pressman, William Riker go back to the USS Pegasus, which had an interphasic cloak, which could actually go through, like, pass through solid matter. So were these just like regular little cloaking devices, or did these things actually make things incorporeal?
I think it actually it makes them incorporeal on that plane of existence. Like, what's the right way to put this? Like, yeah, if they like wave their hand through it, it wouldn't work, but you could. It's close enough that you could interact with it with an energy beam. Like, I get what they were going for, and like bring it into phase with them.
And before I forget, they stole one of the interphasic cloaks off of one of these guys by the time they capture him. Do they ever really indicate that thing gets taken back, or are we to assume that Voyager gets to keep that as a memento?
It does appear that they seized the whole ship, so I'm going to assume that
fair enough.
The dino people probably are like, and also I'll be taking that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Corner in the mess hall, they have a tragic misunderstanding after dinosaur assistant manages to hit Chakotay with a blowgun dart. And in the confusion, the assistant essentially gets captured by the Voyager crew, and Dino Doc grabs Chakotay and borfs back to his own ship with him. And that's where we finally go into what I call turbo exposition mode.
I want to say, I think the biggest missed opportunity, my biggest regret of this entire episode and the entire concept is the scale of these guys. They've got these big, crazy starships that are probably bigger than Borg cubes. They're descendants of dinosaurs. How cool would it have been if these guys were like all the size of T-Rexes and like humans were like little humans next to them? It wouldn't have really done much for sneaking around their ship part, but damn it, this is your one chance to have massive dinosaurs on the show, Voyager, and you squandered it.
They've got money
Budgets.
they've got to work with. It's not a lot.
Sure.
What we find out over there, I guess Act 3 is the exposition dump. And it starts with Janeway dealing with the assistant on her ship who like goes into a protective coma. So she doesn't have anyone she can kind of question.
Yeah, he torps.
And instead they find out about the whole genetic marker bit from the doctor's analysis of him and have a little confab in the holodeck where they piece together through asking the computer strategic questions, which in the 24th century, I guess, is science, that the dinosaur people are in fact dinosaurs, that they're essentially an evolved version of this one particular kind of dinosaur that they pick out that went extinct after the Cretaceous era, but they theorize, well, if it somehow survived and managed to continue to thrive and evolve over the million years after that, what it would look like. Oh, it just so happens to look exactly like the dinosaur person we have in our sick bay. Holy God! That was a little forced, but they got it. They don't have a ton of time left to deal with. Like you said, they spend the first 15 minutes, I think, to the episode's credit, sort of taking its time. And instead of like making this a two-parter or something where they could have continued that, they just are like, oh shit, we got 20 minutes left, time to get this done. And Janeway and the Doctor are like, oh, these are people from Earth. These are dino people from Earth. That's cool. That's pretty sweet. And at the same time, Dino Doc and Chakotay are getting to know each other. They're having conversations. Chakotay works his smooth Indian charm to get Dino Doc to kind of just be chums with him. And he explains, a theory of like, oh, maybe, your civilization that your people built on Earth got destroyed by some sort of cataclysm that we've never been able to find the evidence of. And that's why we've never heard of you either.
So basically their lost city of Atlantis.
Basically, it's like, yeah, maybe you're on an island, and then the island sank into the ocean, and we just never found it.
Credit to Chakotay, he does not actually lay any false Indian stuff on him. And this is also...
My wife was ready, too. She's like, if I hear any fucking fake Indian bullshit from him talking to dinosaur people, I'm going to lose my shit.
Akuchi Moya.
But no, doesn't do it.
It's also strong character building for Chakotay because we have already established that he enjoys first contact situations, that he enjoys the role of diplomat, and this is, I think, a good expression of that. He also says that he, too, is a scientist, which is fucking news to me, but whatever. I want to jump back to the holodeck scene. This is a cool scene because it is our first real extended, clear view of the holodeck, and I don't know if the holodeck they are using is representative of the other holodecks. So there's 3 holodecks on Voyager. Fucking things are tiny. And I paused the screen, and maybe I'll get the screenshot up and toss it on the trauma support group. But Janeway's standing, I don't know, with her ankles maybe a shoulder apart. So you get a good view of how wide a human is. She basically occupies one holodeck square. So they've got, the orange tape on the floor. These holodecks, man, I want to say are like 8 squares across, and I forget how many squares deep, but it's tiny. And
I wonder if they can like raise the partitions like in a Holiday Inn conference room and just like raise the holodeck. I don't know.
But it always brings me back to the Beowulf episode, because you could put, I don't know, 16 people in the holodeck and just slowly walk with everybody holding hands apart. Like, you're doing a dragnet across a field where you're looking for a murder weapon. And if there's like crew members knocked the fuck out or laying dead and rotting on the floor, you're going to trip over them. And there's only so many people these things can hold. And it makes me laugh thinking about some of these big crew functions they throw in there, how everybody just has to be up each other's ass drinking cocktails or banging holo characters in what they would think is the next room over, and really it's just 2 inches away from someone else's face.
Well, when you're playing with lights and energy fields to create the perception of space,
it's the smells you got to worry about, though. It's the smell.
Yeah, sometimes you might be mere inches away from some nasty part of your crewman's hooch.
It smells like sex. What's going on here?
What is this? Breaking my immersion. You're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah. Oh, I got splatter on my face. Jeez. Gonna have to go get that penicillin shot, and I don't even have the good story to show for it.
The situation settles as everyone dumps all the exposition out in Act 3. And it's basically to set up the big courtroom scene. God, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. There's an old movie where they dealt with the Scopes monkey trial. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Do you remember it?
No, but let me set the stage real quick. What happens? So
Inherit the Wind. Fuck, Inherit the Wind scene. God damn it.
Chakotay's scientist dude's like, oh hey, we're getting along so great. And then Chakotay's like, cool, let's go back to my ship, and we can really help you sell this thing. He's like, oh no, we're not going back to the ship because my dudes are waiting for me, and I need to bring you as my proof so I don't get discredited and shit doesn't hit the fan. And Chakotay's kind of like, I thought Chakotay was gonna like throw up a shit fit and be like, now you're kidnapping me and you suck. But Chakotay's just kind of like, well, I don't know. Meanwhile, what we've described before, the city ship, this massive, huge,
probably the biggest ship ever seen on Star Trek.
This thing is like basically the size of a super Star Destroyer, right?
Yeah.
If I'm visualizing this the right way, now we know that Star Wars scale is way bigger than Star Trek, so this is a big fucking ship. It pops out of transwarp and just boom right in front of Voyager, hits them with the tractor beam, cuts right through their shielding, knocks their power out, and they transport the entire fucking ship, all of Voyager, in one fell swoop inside this huge cavernous ship. This is scale the likes of which we've never seen before. They get boarded. The power is completely off. You got Tuvok and Paris prowling some empty hulls. Tuvok's like, oh, my tricorder doesn't work. So, of course, when they get confronted by bad guys, Tom's standing there just clicking the phaser over and over like, huh? What? It's not working. It's a pretty good case that maybe you should just keep a couple for real Glocks or shotguns just put away just in case you got superior enemies who can turn off your energy weapons. But Voyager's on its knees.
That would be a hell of a thing for them to actually have like, all right, energy weapons aren't working. We've got two options. One, space Glocks. Mm-hmm. Two, space pipes. No. This is not a space pipe level emergency.
Oh, what if Lon Suter was still alive and Lon Suter brought the Tyrannosaur people to their knees?
Where it's like, okay, we're in trouble. Lon, grab a pipe, get onto that city ship, take care of business.
I'm not ready to do this again. I've worked so hard. Lon, they're not real people. They're dinosaurs. Think of the children in Jurassic Park, Lon. You can do this. Lon running around a kitchen and like guards chase him and he pulls the thing down and they slam in their own reflections. But
great.
Janeway's
turned it into a horror movie.
Yeah, man. Horror movie where Lon just clobbers the fuck out of a lot of poor dinosaur people. Janeway's at their mercy. Tom tries to pull a little stunt, doesn't work out because again, we are being very clearly shown that Federation technology ain't got shit on million-year-old dino tech. End of story.
And it's to set up the Inherit the Wind scene where they have the trial, quote unquote, of Dino Doc as he tries to justify his perspective. And this is where, like, Chakotay starts bringing up shit that he couldn't possibly know about based on the scenes we've seen with him of both Voyager's investigation of the matter and their data on what happened. That was literally a scene he was not in. That happened on Voyager after he got kidnapped. And then like conversations about the dino people's history that I guess we're supposed to think that he had with Dino Doc, but they don't actually have on camera because apparently days have passed. Right? It's super rushed because
I'll
they're
put
run
out
out
real
of
quick
time.
That Chakotay's playing ball. The guy tells him, "Oh my God, your friends just got captured. Their ship's on lockdown. I've been ordered to go present myself for a trial." And Chakotay's like, "Okay, let's go do this. I'm on your side now, even though you've basically kidnapped me."
Yeah, he's trying to help this guy out, and you know they go through the song and dance that we've lamented, which is that they provide no credible explanation why super advanced dino people wouldn't buy what this guy is saying. Like they wouldn't accept that this is the truth based on the fact that there's verifiable evidence of it. And so it all kind of makes it all like, oh, this is about, belief and not accepting science.
But the problem is the speech that Chakotay gives, which does a couple things. In the end, Chakotay puts on a real good song and dance because he's like, you guys are badasses. The struggle was real. You came out on top. You escaped annihilation on Earth. You traveled the wind. Like he's just on his knees blowing all these dinosaurs. Like, oh, you're so great. You're such, everything's the best about you. And everything he says is kind of like, yeah, why would you be afraid to admit the fact that your species did all these great things and hide these facts and basically deny your own greatness? Like he makes a really good point there. But man, right off the bat, because it's clear what the head judge, president, whatever the hell she is, she's like, so you want to admit that your scientific stuff could be incorrect and maybe you made a mistake? He's like, no, I'm going to stick with it. And she's like, yeah, but it'd be really cool if you just admitted that it was wrong. And she doesn't make any direct threats, but it's clear that that's, it's, you're going to play ball with us or something bad's going to happen. Because they bring out his old assistant, and his assistant's already caved like a house of cards. And he's like, yeah, the research was bad. And the head researcher's like, what did you do? What'd you threaten him with? Why is he acting like this? And they're just like, oh, no reason, man. Just, you sure you don't want to play ball with us? And then Chakotay starts opening his mouth. And I'm like, Chakotay wants to fucking die. It's clear that there's racism and that these cold-blooded people don't care at all what the little monkey people say. So you trying to interject in this big deal trial sounds a whole lot like, hey, look at me. I'm over here. I'm a affront to your entire belief structure. Why don't you just kill me? But then they start hearing him out.
Like you said, he drops hot game. Like, think of it this way. It shows what fucking stone cold villains you guys are to make it through all this shit.
And speaking of stone cold villains, look at everything that you have seen out of these people. Their technology blows yours out of the water. And sure, you've got the one reasonable scientist guy, right? You've connected with him. You like him. You're like, I like this guy. I want to see him survive. I want things to be good. And then you've got the terrible government he comes from. And let's put some different let's put some different faces on these guys. Literally, let's cut off someone else's face and put it on them. And now you have the Vidians, where you've got a couple good Vidians, like, what's her name? Dr. Pell?
Yes.
Who was a great person with a warm heart and saved your life and saved Janeway's life and risked her own life before you guys just left her out to fucking dry.
Right.
But then you have her terrible government, which does all of the things that she has identified as evil. They are suppressing obvious truth. They are ignoring scientific fact. They want to stick to their doctrine. They are not afraid to just scoop ships up and transport them inside of their ship and use your people as hostages and this real totalitarian scary shit, right? And you're over here saying, hey, acknowledge how great you are and blah, blah, blah. It's like he's basically saying, hey, you guys are really cool. Why don't you come back to Earth and just conquer our stupid little monkey asses? Like,
yeah.
I'm like, dude, maybe these are not the people you should be trying to draw a breadcrumb trail back to Earth. Like, you've already had to fight off the Borg pretty hard. It should be clear that we don't want the Delta Quadrant in our Alpha Quadrant. And you don't want these guys having a homecoming. Like, why don't you come back and inherit the Earth and take it back away from us? Because we're just pretenders, and you should come back with your divine mandate and subjugate us all. And, oh, wait a minute. Why am I giving this speech again? Maybe I should just shut the fuck up before I bring my...
The sequel series is Chakotay inadvertently causing the invasion of Earth by the Dino people.
Chakotay's compromised. He's like, you know what? It was really great that the Wind people came in here and interfered in my tribe's upbringing, and I'm already compromised because of their lack of a prime directive. So with my twisted upbringing, I'm just going to try and invite every Delta Quadrant species back to Earth because I don't know any better, and I'm a dummy.
In the end, the episode wraps on the obvious thing happening, which is that Dino Duck concedes to do a false recantation of the facts so that he can save Voyager and his new bro for life, Chakotay, from going to Dino prison. And, we eventually Voyager's just kind of sent on his way as a consequence.
What the hell is that? You've got a very oppressive regime. Humanity is the evidence of a truth that they do not want to believe. I understand them sparing the life of the scientist, because if they just killed him, it'd look real fishy and like make him a martyr, and people might start to really take his shit seriously. But now you got all these other humans who are totally expendable, and I was really expecting there to be something where they're just like, okay, now we're going to just kill all you guys and we'll just say, hey, they went along on their way. But really, we destroyed all the evidence of this conspiracy. But yeah, they let Voyager go. I was not expecting that at all.
So in the end, I think the episode was better than I remembered from it. It wasn't like shitty. It wasn't like actively bad. It was just one of those things where so many times we see this pattern with Voyager of having an interesting setup and not doing enough to pay it off. And I think we've probably had 5 or 6 episodes that we could specifically point to say, boy, oh boy, if only they'd taken a half-second rewrote how they did this. This really could have been something cool. Instead of what it was, which was forced, rushed, didn't explain enough, introduced too many variables that didn't provide enough explanation, and then eventually crowded out their own good idea with sloppy execution.
I like the episode. I'm not gonna. I've shit on it hard. I'm not gonna shit on it harder. I don't think that these dinosaur people are a strong enough vehicle for storytelling that I think they deserved any more than one episode. And I think for something that is going to be a one and done experience, especially we're going to have something as so ballsy as not even have Voyager crew on camera until the 15-minute mark. This felt like a very long episode. I think they brought a lot of flavor in, and obviously, yeah, there was loose ends and inconsistencies all over the place, but they had a story they were going to tell, and I don't think they ramrodded it as hard as some of the other things that they've ramrodded. Yeah, they could have done stuff better, but like I said, honestly, I don't think these guys were interesting enough that I would have wanted more of it or more story. I can fill in the dots well enough for myself. Again, other than the fact of what's so inconvenient, what is the consequence of originating from Earth? But it was good. It was different. It was bold. The costumes looked good. And it was a fun Star Trek story. I went in expecting it to be dog shit. I was very pleasantly surprised. And again, when we look at stuff like Innocence, Resolutions, Prototype, Dreadnought, The Cloud, I've seen such worse things out of Voyager that I will happily embrace this as a good episode.
So what do we got next week, my friend?
Season 3, episode 20. Oh, and I want to point out too, my wife, every time I sit down to watch an episode of Voyager, is this the one where Jerry Ryan comes in? Is this the one with Jerry Ryan? And I'm like, no. Once they bring her, like, she saw her in Boston Public. That's all she cares about. And I just get beat over the head with questions about when's she coming. And I'm always like, I don't know. I think God, how many episodes are in this TV show? I'm like, I don't know, man. I think it's like 30. So I promised her that no matter what, the episode before, I think Scorpion's the one where she comes in.
Correct.
That we'll call our podcast title for the episode before Scorpion, the one before Jerry Ryan shows up. And that will not be this next one. This next one's going to be season 3, episode 24. We have Tom and B'Elanna in what looks to be very familiar caves, only now they have white mint frosting. I think that's supposed to be a cold place area because they're like, brr. Displaced one by one, Voyager's crew members are being replaced by strangers, and the replacements don't know why they are there. You remember this episode?
I remember this one. It's written by Lisa Klink. So
ooh, you mean
you
Lisa
better believe there's
Kink?
Yeah, Lisa Kink is involved.
I don't know. I didn't make that joke during Blood Fever, man. When we were having that joke about specifically what kind of episode
we didn't.
We never
fucking didn't.
No, we did not call her Lisa Kink, and that is her name moving forward. So this is a sexy Hoth scene reimagined of Han and Luke in the Tauntaun, only this time it's going to be B'Elanna and Paris.
Obviously. I look forward to your reactions, sir, and I look forward to all of you listening to us out there. Keep tuning in. We'll keep bringing it to you every Thursday. Thanks again for your support on Patreon. Thanks again to Ian and Sarah for their lovely work on the theme song, and we'll see you all next week.